Chapter 14. A Verdict. Someone pushed Dubrow from behind, and he stumbled into the open space where Jonko, Rabo, and Aiden were standing. A she-Fichi was right behind him. She looked exactly like Dubrow, an older female version of Dubrow. She was his mother, Luku Turtlebane. Dubrow! Her shrill voice silenced the noise of the crowd. Dubrow Turtlebane! How come this civilizer knows your name? Dubrow stood frozen, not sure what to do or say. Mrs. Turtlebane grabbed Dubrow's ear and began to twist it. All right, all right, all right, Dubrow squealed, pulling loose from his mother's grip. I know this civilizer. His name's Aiden of the Tam. He paused and rubbed his sore ear. Yeah, I know him, and I ain't sorry about it neither. What do you mean, boy? Demanded Dubrow's mother. She made another grab for his ear, but he eluded her. You better explain yourself. This civilizer saved my life. A gasp went up from the crowd. Mrs. Turtlebane's hands were on her lips. Saved your life from what, boy? From a panther. He gestured toward the panther hide he wore for a cape. For this here panther. You told me you killed that panther your own self. Dubrow looked down at his feet. Mama, that ain't the truest tale I've ever told. He looked over at Aiden as he remembered what happened. I was getting chased by this panther, and he was bearing down on me pretty good when Aiden killed him with a rock. A rock? Snorted Rabo. You can't kill a panther with a rock. Aiden can, answered Dubrow, smiling toward his civilizer friend. He's got a rock slinger. He's pretty handy with it, too. Mrs. Turtlebane stared at Dubrow, trying to decide how much of his story to believe. Then she stared at Aiden and back at Dubrow. Finally, she took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and raised her chin in a posture of firmness. The crowd grew perfectly quiet as Mrs. Turtlebane stalked toward Aiden. Her eyes were fierce with a mother's protective instincts. Aiden was terrified. His hands and feet were still bound, so he could neither run away nor defend himself. And gagged as he was, he couldn't even beg for mercy. He steeled himself to receive whatever punishment this fierce she-Fichi had in mind for the civilizer who had corrupted her son. Dubrow's mother stood directly in front of Aiden, that strange light still in her eyes. Looking intently at the civilizer, she reached her hand toward Rabo. Give me your knife, Robo. Rabo hesitated. He didn't want to see the civilizer killed without a proper trial. But Mrs. Turtlebane kept her hand outstretched. The intensity of her mother love finally bent Rabo's will to her own, and he handed over the stone knife. Mrs. Turtlebane pointed the blade in Aiden's face, 3 inches from his chin. Aiden did his best to breathe evenly and not to whimper. He was the only civilizer these people had ever seen, and he didn't want to give the impression that civilizers were a tribe of whiners or cowards. I don't want no civilizer around my boy, she said, sneering at the prisoner. Mrs. Turtlebane made a quick upward thrust with the stone knife. Aiden closed his eyes and offered a quick prayer, sorrowful that his life was ending so early and so suddenly. He felt no pain. But on the other hand, he didn't feel dead either. Opening one eye, he saw the vine gag lying on the ground, cut in two. Opening the other, he stared at the she-Fichi sawing away at the vines that bound his hands. I don't want no civilizers around my boy, Mrs. Turtlebane repeated. Then she broke into a greenish grin. But for them what saves his life, I can make an exception. She went to work on the vines that bound his feet. When she had gotten him free, Mrs. Turtlebane fell on Aiden with a hug so fierce it nearly squeezed the breath out of him. The terrible she-Fichi was now sobbing. Oh, ha, 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 ha. You saved my Dubrow. Ha, 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 ha. Bless your head and liver. You rescued my sweet May off from that bad old panther. She planted kisses on both of Aiden's cheeks, 2 on his forehead and 1 on top of his head, just to make sure. Aiden shrank from her prickly chin whiskers and her fishy breath, but he had to admit that this situation had greatly improved in a few short minutes. But Aiden's ordeal was far from over, as he realized when Chief Gergo stepped forth again. The old Fiji chief was ready to pronounce his verdict on the prisoner. The Fiji folk only got one defense against the civilizers, and it's this: the civilizers don't believe we exist. If they did, they would civilize us right off this land. You said something there, came a voice from the crowd. Down with the civilizers, shouted a second voice. Fiji's forever, whooped a third. Ignoring the crowd, Gergo pressed on. That's why the Fiji code says that no civilizer can see a Fijian live. Debro Turtlebane, when you showed yourself to this civilizer, you put a death sentence on his head. Aiden turned pale. Cheers rose up from some of the Fijis in the mob. Let's roast him, suggested someone in the crowd. Feed him to the fire ants, offered another. Aiden felt the breath go out of him. Mrs. Turtlebane clutched Aiden tighter in her protective arms. Debro was sobbing now. But, said Gergo. But, he repeated more loudly, silencing the unruly crowd. There's another law in the Fiji code. It says that nobody who saves a Fiji life should die by Fiji's hand. That's one law I don't aim to break today. Aiden, you gonna live. Aiden's knees felt weak from relief. And that's why, continued the Fiji chief, as the chieftain of the band of Fijis, I declare Aiden of the Tam to be a Fiji friend for the gumption he showed rescuing Debro Turtlebane from a panther. Tonight we'll have a Fiji feast and make it official. The crowd erupted in loud hoots and barks of approval. Aiden wasn't sure if they were cheering because his life had been spared or if they were only happy at the news of a Fiji feast. Some of the Fijis hooting the loudest now were the same ones cheering when it looked as if he would be put to death. It would be a long time yet before Aiden really understood anything about the Fiji folk.